Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers show is brought to you by betonline.ag. The NFL preseason is here, which means the regular season is only a few weeks away. If you want to place a bet on any of the NFL action, betonline.ag is the place to do it.
365, 24/7, whenever, wherever, 7 days a week. Make sure whatever bet y'all can think about, make sure y'all go to betonline.ag.
Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join. Make your first sports bet. Just use our promo code Bleav50. That's BLEAV 50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers show on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergen, joined as always by my guy, two-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, I love chopping it up with you each week, but it's not every day that we get to talk to a living legend, someone we've had on the show before as well. I'm really excited about today's guest.
Hey, if this going to cost a fee, his name got to be Leigh. So we got hey, listen, we got the great living legend Leigh Steinberg on the show again, man. It's a pleasure having Mr. Leigh on the show, man. So we already know what it is, from movies to what's going on in the sports world. Mr. Leigh, again, thanks for coming on the show. I got a question for you just off the top, off the rip. So these guys, I think Derwin James just got paid. He's the highest paid safety today. What makes this transition? So 2005 to 2010, and I'm just going to throw that out there. Safeties wasn't getting paid that much. Receivers wasn't getting paid. And I'm talking about the DK Metcalfs. I'm talking about the Deebo Samuels. How in the world do these young men get paid, 3 for 72? 3 for 73. Is it the salary cap? How does things change in the course of, 6-7 years on, we're getting paid more with less years in these contracts? What do you see from your perspective?
So it's all television money. And it's the fact that, when I started years and years ago, each team got $2 million as their share of the national TV contract. Last year, they got $200 million. And in the midst of a cratered economy and a pandemic, CBS and Fox raised their next 10-year figure by 83%. So we're rolling in television money, and we have a cap. So teams are paying money they have, and they're getting it from brand new stadia with jumbo scoreboards and naming rights and luxury boxes. They're getting it from merchandising and memorabilia and fantasy, internet projects. So when I was a kid growing up, baseball was the number one sport in America. And now it's the NFL by a large margin.
Correct.
71 of the top 100 television shows last year. I'm not just talking the most popular sport, but the most popular television show. 71 of 100 were NFL games. So it's dominating now. The money is rolling in. And what you saw was, until this year, the key positions that seemed to do better were quarterback always, blindside tackle, and then a edge rusher who could put the quarterback on its back. And what got added this year was wide receivers. So one after another, they exploded as one of the favorite positions.
So
I've got to follow up to this. I've got to follow up to this that piggybacks off that. So this is the last year DirecTV will have NFL Sunday Ticket. Amazon is going to be the exclusive provider for Thursday night games unless your game is in network. Tom Brady is going to make hundreds of millions of dollars when he retires from Fox Sports. What do you see as the next shoe to drop when it comes to broadcasting rights in the NFL?
Well, they're just going to keep rising exponentially. And the reason is loss leader bidding. So I remember years ago, I held a party on the back lot of 20th Century Fox, and Rupert Murdoch was there. And I said,
that's money.
Fox,
that's money. When you hold on, that's money. Hold on, Mr. Leigh, before you go. That's a lot of money to hold that point. When you know the right people, you just don't hold it on that establishment.
All right. So I said to him, nobody's watching Beverly Hills 90210 or 21 Jump Street. If you could have a property on Sunday afternoon to show the promos for your Monday through Friday broadcasts where the big commercial dollars are, all of a sudden you could build a network. So you'll lose money on the rights fees, but you'll pick it back up on the network value. And they got in and they bid on it. So the Les Moonves, the last time he bought Thursday Night Football for CBS, said, "I'm so proud I have an opportunity to lose $150 million. Well, he will on the rights fees compared to the commercials, but right. It builds a network. And one thing about sports is you have to watch them in real time. So you can be sure when nobody's TiVoing games anymore, because with all the content supply, somebody's going to tell you the score on Sunday afternoon. Right. You're going to have a hard time. So there's a certainty, and sports delivers a big audience. So that's why we're seeing the explosion in everything. And so the contract that Tom Brady did, well, he's Tom Brady, so it immediately makes that watchable. Or Troy Aikman being on Amazon means all of a sudden that's got credibility. And so it's all about building value for networks.
Don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Leigh, but I just got another question since we're on this topic and you know so much about it. Does cable become prehistoric in these days?
Well, I don't think that younger generation particularly cares. I watch my son, and he's not on the cable anymore, and he just selects what he wants to watch, when he wants to watch it, and all the rest of it. Having said that, tends to be a younger person position, and old fogies like me still, watch cable TV. So I think that why the league's so popular is all you have to do is have $89 or a cell phone, and you can watch an NFL football game. And I think that they're going to try to make sure that the product continues to be available everywhere on every format, but you can always watch it on cable.
Do you think the tech companies will continue to get involved, Leigh? Because we're going to see Amazon jump into the mix this season for Thursday Night Football. Do you see any other tech companies, whether it's an Apple or whether it's a Netflix, do you see them getting involved? Because I look at it from the standpoint of they have a ton more money than any of the broadcast networks have, probably combined.
So, you mean the fact Jeff Bezos is like the richest man in the world? So absolutely other groups are going to try to get in it. But just consider the fact of what I said about $89 and access. Now you have to pay a subscription fee to get Apple. And so does that then make it pay TV? I mean, for the sake of argument, you could put the Super Bowl on pay TV one time and make billions of dollars, but you'd be cutting your audience drastically. So every competitive group that's trying to do streaming television is going to want in on this. It's
Gotcha.
and that then drives dollars up and up and up and up because there's only one NFL.
Is Mr. Leigh Steinberg doing consulting? He's still active with any players to this point?
Oh, well, I'm still the one of the agents of record for Patrick Mahomes, Tua Tagovailoa, a bunch of running backs, Ronald Jones, Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver. So we have younger agents that do a lot of the day-to-day, but I'm still involved in the athletes' lives.
Leigh, one thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned both Patrick Mahomes and Tua. You're probably the best person to ask this question to. How did you find out about the news of Tyreek Hill getting traded from Kansas City to Miami? Because it's one of your clients' loss, but your other clients' gain. And ultimately, it could be a win-win scenario for both teams, considering all of the picks that the Chiefs got back.
There's only one Tyreek Hill, and there's only one player with that type of dynamic speed and breakaway ability. There are others, but he's pretty unique, so he's hard to replace. But they've done a fair job of replacing him, and what happened in those situations is that market for wide receivers came out of nowhere and exploded in one off season. And, it started when with the Packer that went to the Raiders, and it just kept going. And what happens is that every new contract takes the market as it exists, and if the player is really talented and someone they want to lock up for some years, those dollars are going to keep going up and up and up. But that reminds me of the Super Bowl where the Steelers played the Dallas Cowboys. And I had all 7 quarterbacks on the roster. It was in Arizona. And so I had Neil.
Don't flex on me.
I had Neil O'Donnell and I had Troy Aikman. But the hard thing was I also had Carnell Lake and Darren Woodson. So I had clients picking off clients, and I remember once I saw a tape of Bruce Smith, and the good news was that he was sacking everybody in the world, and the bad news was they were all my quarterback clients.
So you had number of good problems. It's a lot of money you had too. The fact it's a lot of Hall of Famers, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of clients. So I'm sure you're doing well for yourself. I got a question though. Mr. Steinberg, I got a question. Just your personal opinion. It's been speculation. They've been talking about this for years on the NFL having a team over there in London. What's your thoughts on that?
That the travel time's too rough, and that Ike, did you ever play in London?
Yes, I did. Yes, sir.
And how was
we played the Minnesota Vikings?
So the point is, you're from here from California, you'd be taking a 12-hour plane ride, and coming back, it's slower, so it could be 14. And so whatever, they're just too far.
Okay.
It's a nice concept, but I think you would be our best source for how that's going to affect you, and if you put that game in the middle of a season, what it does, and then that London team, if they ever played on the West Coast, would be taking 12, 14-hour plane rides. I think if you're trying to keep competitive balance, travel's already a factor, but all the jet lag and the changes, I think that'd be difficult.
See, I thought Minnesota did it right. Minnesota left 6 days in advance before they played us. I think we did it wrong. I think we left a day before, maybe 2 days before, if I'm not mistaken. So Minnesota, obviously, of course, they spanked our butts in that game. And I think that was one of the reasons. They left, I think they left on a Tuesday. Got that Tuesday, they started everything off on a Wednesday, which is usually the installments of what you want to do during the NFL week. Us, I think we got there on a Friday. We did a lot on Friday. Saturday was a walkthrough, played on Sunday. So I didn't think it was enough time for us. But I did think Minnesota did it right on going there a week in advance. And I was just curious on your opinion, because I would think if there was to have a London team, that, you know, teams who do travel, they'll leave out on a Wednesday to make sure they have enough days to acclimate themselves. Same way sometimes the West Coast teams, when they come to the East Coast, they'll come 4 or 5 days before.
Leigh, what Ike's trying to tell you is he didn't sleep at all on this trip to the UK.
I slept. The only time I slept was on the plane.
I understood.
Do you think the possibility would exist maybe in South America or Canada then to stay in this hemisphere, Leigh?
Well, Mexico City would be the first place you look. They're hardcore fans.
Yes.
And, and for example, from here in Southern California, that's like a 5-hour flight. And so that's a little more manageable.
Okay.
But I would think if they decide to expand, that would be the first place they go. Okay. But they don't have to do anything right now except continue the high level of play, because I think in the future you're going to see pari-mutuel betting at stadiums. I don't think we're far away from that, where you can go in and bet at the stadium on who kicks off first, who wins the coin toss, you know, who scores the first touchdown. I mean, gamblers, there are a million bets they can do. And I think it's here because you already have leagues and teams owning part of DraftKings, and that separation is not there anymore.
Your thoughts on the NIL deals in college?
So it has been a revolution just in a year. And all of a sudden, it's expanded in ways that nobody ever really anticipated. First of all, it's not just quarterbacks for teams in football. It can go very deep. I mean, if you're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the 20th Alabama player might be interesting for somebody to work with. And what you've seen happen is the rise of collectives or consortiums of alums from different schools who have banded together to contribute money through their businesses to their specific school. So when they do that, it becomes a tool not simply for incumbent athletes, but in recruiting. So all of a sudden, what they didn't anticipate is that school X can tell a player in recruiting, you know, we've got $5 million of NIL deals for you. And if the NCAA had only expanded the compensation a little more quickly, they could have avoided all this. But it changes our business because all of a sudden, instead of meeting Ike Taylor when you're a junior or when you're a senior, all of a sudden it requires signing players out of high school to the next hot quarterback out of high school or the next hot DB out of high school. Because if another marketing agent signs that player who also represents athletes, if you don't sign them from high school, you would never get a chance to talk to them, because if they're happy with who does the NILs. So it's wow. Changed everything. I mean, you have Jack in the Box giving 15 stipends to players with the first name Jack. I mean, you have Phil Knight goes to Oregon and gives stipends to every single player. And depending on the alum wealth and the degree of excitement there is towards the team, it's just going to take the Power 5 conferences and raise them to a completely disproportionate level.
Ooh.
I see you've got several clients listed on your portfolio as part of the new NIL rules, Leigh. And I know the last time we talked to you, you told us about how your father instilled in you the importance of building relationships. What I'm curious about is what opportunities has that opened up for you personally now that you're able to represent and to work with college athletes?
So a lot of it's about branding. The currency of today is how many followers you have on social media. So the point is, you would take a client and you have to take a look at what their website looks like, how they're what they're projecting as their image and likeness and potentially logo, and create a steady stream of posting on Instagram or TikTok or any Twitter or any of the social media. And so it has players branding themselves, or the marketer in this case. So we are doing a running back at UCLA named Zach Charbonnet. And we negotiated a couple deals for him. But part of what we're working on is raising his profile. And so if an athlete posts enough and he has enough followers, that's a revenue stream that advertisers want to go to, so they can monetize what's coming off of social media. So obviously it's totally different, because now you have a high schooler thinking about what his brand is. How many people out of 100 can name that athlete? And if they can name him, can they put a positive adjectives together with them? And if they can do that, all of a sudden, and does he post interesting content? So it's a brave new world.
On the legendary living legend, sports agent Leigh Steinberg, in his free time, what does he do?
I'm not sure I know the definition of that word, Ike. If you could really explain it to me, it would be good. I picked a job that I could do anything that was interesting. So I could write books, I could work on movies, I could do charitable foundations. My current project is taking healing modalities and breakthroughs in biomed, new treatments and new machines that, number one, can help stimulate energy with an athlete in critical situations. If you look 5 months ago, 4 NFL playoff games came down to the last play. Impossible, right? The odds against that were astronomical. But what it shows you is the level of competition is very narrow, and a third of games may be blowouts. But is there a way to hype up focus and energy and productivity in critical moments? So that's first. Second of all, because of the cap system now, if you lose your left tackle, the backup to him is not somebody just a little bit worse. It's a precipitous drop, because that player is playing for the minimum, right? So if you could get players back quicker. So I'm talking about hyperbaric oxygen and stem cells and light stem and cognitive processes like RTMS. So I'm going to bring those as a package to pro sports, college sports. And then once you validate it, every person in this country who wants to have more energy and mental focus, they've now got amazing techniques to stimulate this.
Yeah, I'm not doing enough. I thought you was going to come something simple like what I do. If you would have asked me the same question I asked you, Mr. Leigh, I would have just said, man, I like smoking the one-of-a-kind cigars. But you took this thing to a whole different level.
Let me piggyback off this too, Ike. Leigh, I saw that they've named a lecture hall after you at Cal Berkeley, your alma mater. How does that make you feel to know that your name is on the door and you're going to help teach the next generation?
Well, we are teaching the next generation with things like our Agent Academy and sports career conferences. So I feel a responsibility to try to bring an ethical, principled group along who can work for teams and leagues and conferences, who can work in sports marketing and television and facilities, who understand the power of sports to make a positive difference in the world. And I'm under no illusion that there is immortality. So they can put your name on a building and it'll be good until the next donor comes along and they rename the building. So it's a nice thing, and I hope it inspires younger people, but it doesn't save me from having to take out the garbage.
I know Anthony McFarland is one of your clients, Leigh, and Steelers backup running back role, something I talk a lot about. What can we expect from him this upcoming season?
Well, of course, the Pro Bowl, a magnificent season. There's my experience with the Steelers is this. I was a designated agent for their quarterbacks for years. So that started with Neil O'Donnell. It went to Cordell Stewart. It went to Ben Roethlisberger in his early years. And that organization, when Roethlisberger retired, he did it without ever having a losing season. Now, all these rules exist to create parity, right? You get the reverse order of the way you finish in the draft. You get more money under the salary cap if you don't have a good record of good players. All these things exist, but it doesn't change because a player puts on that Steeler uniform and he plays better. I don't know how that happens, but they do. And they are so organizationally well run that and it starts with the Rooneys and goes down and then the coach. But my point is that people in Pittsburgh don't even understand what a usual cycle is, where the team goes up, wins the Super Bowl, 2 years later, it's in the basement. That never happens with the Steelers. So I'm always happy when we have players back there because I know they're going to have a quality experience.
Appreciate the kind words.
Leigh, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to ask you this question before we let you go. I know you've been probably asked about it a million times. Tom Cruise just made a sequel to Top Gun. Any word about a Jerry Maguire sequel?
Cameron Crowe, the writer-director, is pretty firm that he doesn't do sequels, and there won't be a sequel. I've been approached by a number of different entertainment people to do a show. Might be a TV show, might be a movie, but it would track my career from 1975 to now. So next year's draft will be my 49th. So you were asking what I would do. I think 50 is a nice number.
Real good. You read my mind. You read my mind. Because I was like, once we get to 50, we can shut this. Hey, we as in like I'm your family member. We can shut this thing down. We can go there and shut this thing down, baby.
50.
Wow. Leigh, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. You've always been terrific, and I can just tell you this too. There are things from the 2 times we've talked to that I bring up in conversations with people that I have in the media industry, with friends of mine. So we certainly appreciate your time this afternoon.
Well, I love you guys. It's fun being with you.
Mr. Leigh, I appreciate you bringing us, because we talk X's and O's. So I appreciate you bringing us and giving us insight on the business side, because you've been doing it for a long time at a high success rate. So really thanks for educating Mark and I for everything you tell us. I asked these questions like as soon as I knew you was coming on board. I just wanted to ask these questions as well because I need to educate myself in who did a better person to educate themselves when it comes down to business from a guy who's a living legend than you. So I appreciate you just educating us and having the time and the patience.
Thank you, Ike.
For our guest, Leigh Steinberg and Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergen. Thanks for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. We will see you next week. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
Peace.